All right, Bulls and Bears back with another dose. We've got a lot to get into. As always, a ton of news to cover. The latest economic financial news, always what you'll find here, folks. Today we're going to talk about housing, the housing bubble specifically, home prices, a big uptick, and not just an uptick, but a record-breaking season for evictions in many different cities. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a app that basically froze people's money, like a lot of people. And we're going to start with that. We got a lot of other economic news on the other side. But take a look at this, folks. This is a little bit concerning because as you look on the internet, you see these ads pop up for high yield savings accounts, right? Some of them are with banks that you've never heard of. Some of them are non-banks that actually partner with banks. But take a look at this. And then we'll get into a video here. Savings account owners unable to access frozen funds deposit to an FDIC insured bank. They're having to go through a bunch of hoops to get their money, even though this bank was FDIC insured through a very popular app. Take a listen to this.
Millions of dollars and thousands of people nationwide who haven't been able to access savings accounts. Local consumers say they trusted an app and a bank. Now they're asking why their funds are frozen.
So your app says a balance of $7,458, but you can't get it.
I can't get it.
Konstantin Tarnaruski of Vernon Hills and Brendan Murphy of Lindenhurst can't access those funds. The balance shows $2,729. Both men put their money in high-yield savings accounts. The FDIC bank which backed the accounts was Evolve Bank and Trust, but the men used the app Yada. The app gives users the chance to win prizes for saving money. So
that sounds kind of shady, right? Is it just me? Does it seem shady you win prizes for saving money?
you thought your money was safe?
Yes, and high yield savings was
Are they giving out stuffed animals? Prizes? What kind of bank gives out prizes?
really what I wanted. and they set
Bath toys? Squeaky ducks?
it up so that the more money you save and you kept in there, you would get more bonuses.
As long as you had their debit or credit card, then there would be no penalty to withdraw money if you needed to use it.
Now they are some of the 85,000
85,000?
customers who Yada says were locked out of their accounts in May of 2024.
I tried taking all of my money out just to be like safe, like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then all of the transactions got canceled.
In this lawsuit Yada filed against Evolve Bank, Yada alleges that Yada customers have had no access to the over $100 million.
So what good is the FDIC? You have to file a lawsuit to get your money? This is ridiculous.
In funds that they deposited with Evolve in good faith, and that Yada has received thousands of messages from its customers, many of whom have lost substantially all of their assets to Evolve's treachery. But the FDIC-backed bank Evolve blames the missing funds on the...
Many have lost all of their assets, folks. Don't put all your money in one place. Haven't you ever heard, not you, but the people they're talking about that lost all their money, haven't you heard, don't put all your eggs in one basket? Right? Easter's coming up here. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
The recent financial collapse and bankruptcy of a middleman, Synapse Brokerage, which helped manage the money. In this motion to dismiss the lawsuit, Evolve says it is Synapse's conduct and not Evolve's that is at issue.
It's not held at Evolve. So they did a audit of all of their transactional logs, and they're saying that the money doesn't exist.
Evolve Bank and Trust told the
They did an audit. The money doesn't exist. Interesting.
team that it understands the frustration.
It's really digits on a screen anyway. It's not money, right?
And it's working to bring closure, but says that Synapse Brokerage moved most of the funds away from Evolve. We reached out to Synapse, its bankruptcy attorney, and its bankruptcy trustee, but haven't heard back. The app Yada says its lawsuit speaks for itself and that since October, our customers have deposited over $125 million using an Evolve routing number. Evolve cards have processed over $80 million of transactions. Former Illinois resident Zach Jacobs created this website, fightforourfunds.org. So far, he's brought together about 6,700 people who say they can't access more than $51 million with an average loss of about $7,500. Transaction data from the Federal Reserve System. The bank says customers...
Folks, bottom line here, moral of the story is no one's really going to be looking out for you, are they? Think about all the money that we send again all over the world, all the aid that we've sent all over the world, and yet we have people here getting scammed out of thousands of dollars and in total millions and millions of dollars. Working class people, probably, they just wanted to get maybe, 5% yield on a savings account if you're lucky. On this topic still of things that are not funded like they should be, right? All this other funding that we see all over the world, but other things that are not funded. Look at this, what's happening with the homeless situation. Out of Mission Local, San Francisco homeless families say the mayor promised them a reprieve, but they got eviction notices instead. On February 28th, Emily Leota received a notice that she and her husband and 3 children had to leave their room at San Francisco's Salvation Army. They got kicked out of a Salvation Army homeless shelter. Army Harbor House, a homeless shelter for 12 days. She felt confused 2 days earlier, the mayor said. As long as she and her family were making positive progress towards getting permanent housing, they would not end up back on the streets. Quote, there's nothing we can do. These are the orders from above us. We're being evicted. Just another example, folks. I mean, all this homeless situation can be fixed with all the money that we see, trillions of dollars. I mean, with 30-something trillion dollars in debt now, we could have had homeless camps set up for every homeless person. It might not have been a very big house. It might have been very small, maybe even a shed, but definitely could have done it, right? With all the money that we've spent here. So that's why I do back at least an investigation to see where all this money is going. Anyone that doesn't at least want to know where the money's going, I have to question their integrity and their common sense. I mean, come on, at least figure out where this money's going, right? We've seen all the ridiculous spending for many years now. We've uncovered all the ridiculous spending that we spend money on. And now supposedly we're going to be pulling back on foreign aid, but even that's not true. I just read an article that says we're still going to be sending billions of dollars to some countries that probably most of you know about, and it's not going to stop, folks. I mean, I think a lot of this, what's happening right now, it's meant to cause friction between the right and the left, right? Pretending that one side's going against the other side, just to make people think that something positive is being done. And maybe it is, and maybe I'm wrong, but I see a lot of this as a big shell game and a nothing burger and smoke and mirrors. All right? Because again, if they wanted to help people, why would you see stories like this about people getting kicked out of homeless shelter, right? So is it about helping people, or is it about the ones in power getting more power, getting more control, and gaining more wealth, right? Right, let's move on, folks, to the inflation fears. U.S. toy factories are slammed with orders after Trump tariffs on China and Mexico. Toys? Do people still play with toys? Here's an article, AP. Toys are expected to cost more by fall. Well, just a few days ago, we were warned that by Target that the prices are going to start going up here in the next couple of days. So I'll see how that plays out. What game is this? I've never seen this game before. Strategio. Pretty much all the games my kids play are on digital screens. They don't play any board games. Right? When I was a kid, we still played some board games. We had video games, of course, but 1 or 2 board games. This is, anyways, go buy your Legos, folks, because price is gonna go up. For those of you still buying toys, I guess for your family. And by the way, you see this little Tykes car. This is probably one of the few vehicles that most people can afford nowadays, because of the cost of living and everything else. Put some new rims on that, and you're gonna be cruising hard in that, people. What do we have here? Little Tykes, the sandbox. About 80% of U.S. toys are made in China. 80%. Though this sandbox is made by Simply 3 in Ohio. So maybe we'll see a surge in jobs at toy factories. A bunch of toy manufacturers are going to bring jobs back to the U.S. By the way, sandbox, just get 4 pieces of wood, maybe 3 feet each, build a square, and dump sand in there, folks. Don't go buy a plastic toy box. I mean, I think I used to have one, so I shouldn't say that. Right? Who has time to sit there and pound wood together when you have a job to work? When you're working 40 hours a week and then doing a YouTube channel on top of that, at least I have an excuse of why I bought one of these. Maybe 12 years ago when my kid was like 4 years old, whatever. About the age of that kid you're seeing right now. I'm busy, folks. I don't even change my own oil anymore. I used to save a few dollars by changing my own oil, but then when I calculated it with the time that it took me, with how much I was saving, I think I was spending about $25 changing my own oil after buying the oil, getting the filter, all that. Get into the car, but then you can get the oil change at these places for like $31, $32. So it's only $6 or $7 more to go to one of these oil change places. You got to find a place that you trust. And it sometimes takes longer unless you go to an express service. They'll charge a little more. Anyways, I don't mean to digress here. Let's move on here. Let's go ahead and move on to some housing market news, folks. The housing bubble not deflating. We were one of the only channels to tell you that the housing bubble is not going to go bust because of what we see happening with the banks right now and how the banks are still being propped up and still given the green light, the endless green light to keep loaning out money, even though they don't have to have any money in their vaults. But we look here, a drop in mortgage rates here. We were over 7% in January, and now we're down to 6.63. That's the biggest drop in several months. And people that were hoping for a housing market crash or even a bigger home price correction are going to be disappointed to see that they're going to do everything they can do to keep the housing market propped up with lower rates. And on a slightly more positive note, inventory is rising. So for those waiting on the sidelines, hoping for lower home prices, we are seeing a rise in inventory ever since it bottomed out in early 2022. But when you look at the bigger picture here, we're still way below where we were pre-2020, where we had about 1.46 million homes for sale at one point back in 2016. Now we're down to less than a million, about 850,000 homes on the market right now. And these are active listings. All right, look at median home prices, folks. This is out of the Fed data, central bank data here. Still as of the fourth quarter, 2024. And we're seeing kind of a topping pattern over here, similar to what we saw before the previous housing bust. We saw a lot of volatility from year to year with the price. And now we're seeing this topping pattern. Looks like almost a double top right here. And also similar to what we saw in 2017-18. And I think that bubble would have came down, folks, if it wasn't for the 2020 situation where everything got turned upside down and inside out with the just the inflation policies, the inflationary policies that were introduced, the bank emergency program that's still active as of today, where the banks can loan out endless amounts of money without any in their vaults, without any in reserves. That's still happening today, folks. Nobody in power in this administration or any administration is going to be crazy enough to reverse that, because that would bring the whole house of cards down. You'd see home prices drop by 50% within months if they were to do this, folks, to restrict the banks from loaning out money unless they actually have to have it. If they had to have it in their vaults in order to loan it out, the whole house of cards comes crashing down, folks. I mean, nobody knows the number. Maybe it'd be worse. I mean, is it 60% of it? Is it 70%? Is it 80%? Please let me know down in the comments, what you think would happen if that were to be implemented again, where banks have to have the money that they loan out. Speaking of housing and high home prices, high rents as well, record-breaking evictions in February around the Phoenix metro area. I guess the positive part of this is it declined from January to February. It went from a lot to not as much, but still a record for the month of February. Folks, record-breaking evictions. We told you right here on this channel. This was going to happen as soon as people started losing their jobs back in 2020 with the grinding to a halt of the economy. We saw just after one or two missed paychecks, people were desperate and they had to have help. Of course, we had a big housing moratorium and mortgage forbearance, where if we didn't have that, the housing bust would have been twice as bad. There would have been twice as many foreclosures in 2020 as there was in 2008 and 9 with that housing bubble. It would have been twice as many in 2020 if it weren't for the moratoriums, right, and the freezes on the foreclosures. Remember that. So this is all manipulated. The price corrections are not allowed to happen. They're not going to let home prices fall very much. They've dropped some from the peak, but pretty much the name of the game is keep things inflated, right? And that brings me to another point as well. And a reader and a viewer of this channel reminded me of this, and that's inflation, right? And the tariffs. So tariffs actually will likely cause inflation, but I think that's intended, right? Because remember, inflation masks a bad economy, right? Let me repeat that. Inflation masks a bad economy. Why do you think they would rather inflate, and have inflation rather than falling prices and deflation, right? With falling prices, you have lower tax revenue because homes are worth less. That's lower property taxes. No administration wants that. When people are spending more on everything, that makes it look like the economy is growing because that pads the gross domestic product number, which is 70% consumer spending. So higher prices gives the illusion of a growing and booming economy. So of course, I mean, this all may be done on purpose to cause more inflation. And they're going to say, well, it had to be done to bring jobs back, da, 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 da. But if the cost of living continues to go up, even if jobs come back, it's still going to be the same. Most people will be living paycheck to paycheck. Yeah, there'll be more jobs. Maybe wages will be a little bit higher, but prices are still going to be rising in the background faster than wages. I mean, I think this is what's going to happen. And look, we've been right about pretty much everything over the past, however long I've been on this channel, 2018, I believe we started, right? So maybe this is my 7th year. I'd have to look. But we've been right pretty much about everything on this channel. We told you the housing bubble wasn't going to go bust. Cost of living is going to rise. Inflation is going to get worse. All these things, every episode, every report we proved to you, we're right. We said evictions are going to get worse. Look at this. This is just the latest article. I've got tons of other cities that I saw in the news recently. This is just the latest one that I found. Tons of other cities are setting records for evictions. And guess what? It's going to continue to get worse even under this administration, which a lot of people believe that they're going to help people and fix a lot of these problems. I'll believe it when I see it. I don't really see any action that's really going to make a big change in a lot of this. And remember, folks, I think most of you know it's this administration that's been calling for the central bank to lower interest rates, right? So they're saying they want to help people, but yet lowering interest rates, is that going to help people? We see mortgage rates dropping again, folks. What a disaster so far. And I know I'm going to get beat up in comments. I know I'm going to get backlash because people are going to say, well, it's better than the previous 4 years. Of course. That's the name of the game, folks. Have something terrible, and then when something awful comes along, it actually seems good because it was so terrible before. So now awful actually seems good to a lot of people. And I'll get called a left-winger. I'll get called whatever names. But I'm just looking at the numbers, folks. I'm just looking at the data. And if you want to dispute me on the data, besides just calling names or saying I'm this or that, dispute me on the data. But the numbers don't lie. Record-breaking evictions, prices rising, inflation's going to get worse, folks. So buckle up, invest accordingly, right? That's what's good about staying on top of all this information. You know how to invest. And as soon as this whole thing plays out with the tariff scares and the investigations and the audits, then I'm going to get back in the markets, of course, and look for places to make money, as always. And I think the really poor people are going to be the ones hurt the most. Look what's happening over in Hawaii. Hawaii food banks report canceled shipments and frozen funds amid the federal cuts, folks. So we've got homeless people being kicked out of homeless shelters. We still have aid going out to different countries, whether you know about it or not. It's still happening. Just do a search. And now cuts to food banks, folks. Is it going to get dangerous? Are we going to see a massive spike in crime because of all the people that are going to be basically hungry and desperate and homeless? I mean, you let me know what you think down in comments. And maybe you see the sunnier side. Again, if I'm wrong, I'll read your comments and I'll admit it. Next report, we'll see you here. Please make sure you let me know what you think down in comments. Keep stacking. Subscribe button right there. Please do me that. Even if you disagree, subscribe so you can educate me on why I'm wrong. Subscribe so I can read your corrections of my analysis here, and then I'll talk about it in my future videos, right? I read your comments, folks. Everybody keep stacking. Bye for now. Peace.